There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit ComicShopLocator.com to find a store near you.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to, well, this is not In Stores This Week with Kyle and Dan. This is not the Dan Wickline Show. This is not even Pop Go the Writers or any of the other shows we normally have on here. Today, we are celebrating our magical, yes, I have a magic wand here, our magical 1,000th episode. It's our 1,000th episode. That's a tough damn word. So our 1,000th episode. Yeah. And, we are going to do some behind-the-scenes discussion here with a few of our guests, being Kyle Northrup, our producer extraordinaire and my co-host on In Stores This Week. We're going to have Imani Lateef from Black Comic Universe, not University. Please stop saying that wrong, Dan. And we're going to have Nancy McCann from Friday Night Live joining us a little bit later.
Comics Unlimited, Cleveland, Tennessee.
Comics Unlimited, Cleveland, Tennessee, and lady so nice, the entire city of Cleveland moved with her.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Because she used to be out here. She used to be our SoCal connection, and now she's out in Tennessee, and that must be a new thing. I also know Dan Taylor used to be an editor at IDW. He's out in Tennessee now too. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, Chattanooga seems to be the place to be.
Mm-hmm. Jenna Byrne says, all the peeps. Yep.
Hi, Jenna.
Hey, Jenna.
Jenna's the one who makes sure we get stuff on our social medias.
That's right.
She's in charge.
Right? I know I'm bad about that. And I actually gave my phone number to her so she can text me, and yell at me so that I will get things done.
Yeah.
Because I'm real bad at following stuff like Slack and things like that.
Yeah. Same
All right. So we are talking our 1,000th episode.
Yes.
And I think we should start, Kyle. How the hell did this happen?
Well, I mean,
speaking of the mic, Kyle.
Yes. The inside baseball of it all, I guess, is that somebody called me one day and said, "Hey, can you do this thing?" And I said, "Yes." And now here we are. The longer version of that story is that coming out of the pandemic last year, there was a huge glut of stores and people in the industry who were looking for a way and a place to be online and to have a platform. And see, I'm having to produce while I'm trying to talk to. But looking for a platform, looking for someplace. And a lot of us were a part of another platform here over on Facebook, primarily. So if you're watching on Facebook, here on Facebook, if you're everywhere else, which thank you for being everywhere else, over on Facebook. And that thing was full. And so there was a need for something new. And one of the big things was there was a need for entertainment content. The other platform that we had been on had basically turned into QVC.
Mm-hmm.
It was all sales all the time, all hours of the day and night. And they needed some entertainment. We wanted some entertainment. So a group of, they've called themselves thought leaders. I don't particularly care for that term, but a group of leaders in the industry really came together and said, well, let's start a thing. And I had been working with a couple of them doing shows over on that platform. And I had run a virtual convention. I'd run a couple of virtual conventions last year. And they came to me and said, hey, man, you seem like someone who knows how to do a thing. Do you want to come and do that thing? And I went, I do know how to do things, and I would. So, yeah, pretty much. Not entirely incorrect, JD. It was very
Come on. There was that question of, am I going to get paid?
No, I'll be honest, that wasn't in the first conversation.
Oh.
I trusted them enough to know that I would.
Okay.
But I also, I was at a place where I thought I might be getting pushed out of the industry. I had been a retailer. That was no longer a thing. I was working in a factory and selling comics like on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like I was getting pushed out of the industry, which was no one's fault but my own. But this gave me an opportunity to stay in. So I was more interested in making the thing work than worrying about, am I going to get paid? How much am I going to get paid? That type of thing.
So how much of what you originally planned out and talked, how much of that is what we have now? And how much of it is, sweet Jesus, what the hell happened?
There are a great many things which we planned out and talked about and worked really hard to kind of get ready for that we have yet to do. But by and large, everything that's on the air are things that we came into this with let's try and get something like this on the air. I would say the thing that is most out there, that was kind of lower on our totem pole, but situations arose and let us happen, is the dance party. Every Saturday night over on Twitch, we have the EXP dance party with Taji Beats, who is Brainy Singh from Enjoy Games and Comics in California. But that was one of those things. It's like, I wanted to have something musical on the show or on the air, because there are music nerds out there, and music nerds, deserve to be represented too. So we wanted something with music, and Brainy just happens to be an amazing DJ. And I forget what he was spinning for, but Jen sent it to me, and I went, yeah, this is awesome. And then it was, we should get it on the air. So that's maybe the most off of the script thing we have. Your show, the Dan Wickline show, is a version of something we had wanted. And so when the Dan Wickline show came to us, it was a pretty easy going, oh, well, this isn't exactly what we had talked about, but it's much better than the thing we had talked about. So let's do that. And the same with Pop Go the Writers. Little bit different than what we had originally hoped for, but also better and more thought out of an idea than we had. So many of my ideas are, what if I'll give you an example of something that's not happening in the near future so I can say it. And then if it happens, I'd be like, see, Kyle's a prophet. He's prophetic like that. Like, I have an idea for a documentary where it's just me and an indie creator in a car driving convention to convention.
I like that.
Well, and the big idea is that, Emerald City and C2E2 are back to back this year.
Right.
So what if me and someone like Henri or someone like you or somebody got in a car after Emerald City, which is first, I believe. And we leave Emerald City Sunday night, and we've got until Wednesday or Thursday to get to Chicago. And it's like the Muppet movie where the Muppets have to cross the country, but their ADD is all get out and want to stop at every roadside attraction. And,
I did something like that, actually. I drove from LA to Texas and back with Tone Rodriguez and Tess Fowler for Wizard World Dallas, and we filmed a big chunk of it, and I just have the footage sitting on my computer somewhere. Yeah. Never really edited together.
But getting somebody like Henri who has just as little an attention span as I have, being like, hey, there's a sign for the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota, which is a Weird Al reference, by the way. Yes. We need to go see it. But we're going to be late to C2E2. I don't care. I want to see a big ball of string.
Absolutely. I use the big ball of twine reference a lot. Now, I think one of the smartest things you did was bring in this next gentleman here. You brought Imani Lateef on here with Black Comic Universe, and let's bring Imani in here. Really? There you go.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Imani. How
Hey,
you
what's
doing?
up?
I'll be honest. I keep forgetting
Good.
JD is here to click the things, so I keep clicking the things. And
Don't click the things.
I
You have a
gotta stop.
manservant.
That's
gotta
right.
You have a manservant. You have a
All right,
manservant.
I'm taking my mouse and putting it way over here.
Mm-hmm. That'll last about 30 seconds.
I have another one here that's attached to this computer.
Yeah, I figured. How you doing today, sir?
Doing good.
Good.
Can
So
you hear
how
me
did-
okay? My mic is good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you finally got an arm.
Yeah. Well, I've always had it. I've been using it for art, so I switched it up and put my mic on it. So
Looks good.
So, how did Kyle convince you to join this merry band of misfits?
how did
I
he
think
convince me?
it went the other direction. I think Imani convinced me.
Well, you know what it was? It was because we met when I was here in Toledo. I do a couple of events, Black comic book events at our public library here in Toledo, Ohio. And it was just before COVID. I think it was a year before COVID. They shut down the downtown library to renovate. And I was looking for a way to actually do another event someplace else and things like that. And I've been talking to Kyle for a while when he had Sean's Anime. He had his shop. And he was telling me about some people approaching him about some shows and all this kind of stuff. So I think it seems like we've always talked about doing something together, and I've actually come out to his shop and did some comic book workshops with kids. So I think it was a natural progression. Like when he had his opportunity, he knew that he could plug. Yep, R.I.P.
Hey, it still exists, just kind of in a digital realm that no one can see because I took the website down.
Yeah, that's how.
Then does it really exist?
I still pay for
That's
the
how things-
URL.
It dies once it's dead online. It's dead forever, for real. But
I still have the vanity.
So basically, that's how. So basically, it was sort of like a natural progression. Like we've always been talking about collaborating on something. I think this was a natural fit. I was already networking with a lot of creators. He had the network, so it's just all plugged in.
Well, and we have been talking about doing something this year, doing something virtually. And the pitch came to me, hey, we should do something for Black History Month. And I went, I know a guy. Let me talk to this guy that I know and say, hey, let's do something. And I don't know if people who watch my shows, who watch In Stores This Week or whatever, necessarily realize my passion in the industry is indie comics. If you're running your book at Kinko's, you're my guy.
Right.
Yeah, I've noticed.
Well, I love small press publishers. I love independent creators, all of those people. So Imani was one of those guys that always had his kind of finger on the pulse of the Black indie community. And he was always telling me about guys who 6 months later are blowing up. They've got books at Boom or IDW or Image. And Imani knew about him 6 months before anybody else did.
Yep.
David Crownson was one of those guys. Imani's like, dude, Harriet Tubman, Demon Slayer. And I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, and he's like, yeah, it's awesome. And I go, okay. And now that's a thing that's a really sought after and really hot book. And David Crownson is a creator that is blown up. So, but it was I knew Imani, and I knew that if I went to him and said, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking. Can we put something together, that he would know who to talk to. He would have a list of guys, and he knows those guys, so he can talk to them. And we brought in Victor Dandridge for that, to help out a little. And I mean, we had some great guests for the first BCU. I mean,
Yeah,
Pua Richardson and Joe Illich and My favorite interview, I think, of the whole thing was Keith Cross. Just because
okay, yeah.
I've become obsessed with that book and his art style.
Yeah. Yep,
Since
and his
then,
book is, and he's been optioned since we talked.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, it's been interesting.
So that's kind of how it came to be, I think. And then it was, hey man, you want to keep doing it? Like, you want to do it every week?
Every week-ish, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Right.
So first thing, hey, Sean Butler, thanks for joining us. Imani, so you've done, you're doing this weekly now. Which has been your favorite guest so far? Or favorite moment so far?
It's kind of been a toss-up between, I think it might be David Walker. I'll put it to you like this. My biggest sort of like celebrity interview is probably David Walker interview. I think that's probably my biggest name. So that's a favorite of mine. But what's interesting is that it's my favorite shows to do are the ones actually with Marcus Roberts. And that's someone I did not know until Kyle introduced me to him and brought him onto the BSU show. And I promise you, ever since then, I love talking about, the history of comics with him and talk about the comic book industry. He has definitely shed a lot of light on sort of broadening the conversation as to what indie is. You know what I mean? So I have actually some of my favorite conversations are with him. And I actually have, Kyle to thank for that, because I wasn't aware of Second Sight and him at all. And I think since then, I think he's been on the show more than anybody else.
3 times.
Actually. So yeah.
Well, he was on the original BCU event, and he's been on the show 3 times.
Yep. So it's like I think technically, as far as my favorite person to talk to, it'd probably be Marcus, but my favorite interview is probably David Walker.
And what's been cool is that Imani and I have really collaborated kind of on this. It's like Imani knows the community, but I have some connections that maybe he doesn't have, or I knew the gang at Saturday AM, which is not somebody he knew. And that's, you have
Right.
Black manga creators. I knew the gang at Second Sight, that kind of stuff. So it's been really fun to collaborate, but I have to tell you, one of the best interviews he's ever done, hands down. There are 2 that just stick in my brain. The first one was Morgan Iverson, and who's Morgan's partner?
Oh, Danny Quick.
Danny Quick.
Yeah.
That just turned into like
Utter chaos, right? Yeah,
a Comedy Central roast.
Right, yeah.
Like they're busting on each other the whole time. It's like, is Danny, or is Danny ever not driving? Like he's on the interview,
right, he's
driving.
Always,
like, it just was great. And then when he had his brother on, Imani's brother is a pretty well-known and regarded artist in his own right. And so when he had his brother on, that was one of my favorite interviews too, because this is 2 guys who've known each other's creative process and art for as long as they've existed, talking about creativity and art. And that was super fun. I got a text from his brother today on Facebook. Just a picture of his brother's working on a mural right now here in town. And it was just a picture of what he had done today.
Nice.
Basically up on that lift. Yeah, man. He's like several stories up in the air working on a couple
hundred feet in the air. And I'm like, nah, man, I'm good.
Yeah,
just send me
man.
pictures.
Yeah.
I got the clearance to go down there and help, but I'm like, I'm not getting in a lift. They're like, well, then we don't need you. I'm like, okay, great. Send me pictures.
Yeah, man.
All right, Kyle, what about you? What's been your favorite moment so far since this whole thing has started?
Well, launching the thing was pretty great, because I worked that week. I probably worked 100 hours that week getting ready for that event. And I got to meet Don Wen, who did a lot of the graphics for that first event, just because I was so slammed. We needed somebody to help with the graphics, and Don Wen stepped up, and now he's one of these guys that, I talk to regular in the industry, and he's helping us to develop a show and all this other kind of stuff. So that was a big one. Since we've launched, things that stick in my mind are like when you and I got to talk to Chris Daniels. Some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I have my favorite personal moment, which I will share on the TikTok during the month of August for our 6-month anniversary. So I'm going to keep that one under my hat. But one of the coolest things I've gotten to do was to interview Tony Schiavone, who, if you grew up in the 80s and 90s and were a wrestling fan, was the voice of WCW. Now he's the voice of AEW. He has his memoirs coming out as a graphic novel from Source Point Press. And nice. we got to talk. I got to talk to him, which was cool because I met him once before, and when he was calling baseball, and so we got to actually talk about wrestling. We got to talk about his book. We got to talk about his life. That was pretty fun. And I will give everybody a little hint. The greatest moment for me also has to do with professional wrestling, and it's happened since we've gone live here. So that was cool. The other one I would say this is developing a friendship with John Romita Jr. Based solely around our mutual love of blues music.
Oh, nice.
I had interviewed him earlier in the day on during our EXP Expo kickoff weekend. And we had done another interview in between. I think it was Jim Starlin. And then there was like a break, like a 15-minute break. So I could get a drink of water, go to the bathroom. I come back and he's in the room ready to go. And so we start talking while we're waiting. And I had some music playing just in that 15 minutes. And we started talking about the blues and kind of sharing our, the new blues music that I'm into and the stuff that he's listening to. And having that kind of conversation was really cool. And it was off the air. It wasn't broadcast. Mm-hmm. It was just a moment between us. And then I will say the last thing for me is Howard Chaykin. Howard is notoriously he is what he is.
He's an interesting interview.
Yes, he is. And, he puts himself out there and just says, hey, I can't, I'm this guy. I don't know why people like me. I'm this guy. I don't know these things. Mm-hmm. It's whatever. But getting him to relax and have a conversation just solely about food and what conventions he missed because of the eating at the conventions, and asking him about the time when he took Bob Layton and introduced Bob Layton to matzo ball soup, and introduced him to kosher food. Like, getting him to relax and talk about that was also kind of a highlight for me.
Yeah, for me, I got him talking about Chicago. My dad grew up in Chicago, so we were able to connect on that level. So, but don't ever ask him about the Shadow.
After I had him talking, I had asked him about the Shadow, and he was more than willing to talk. But it was, okay, let's talk about the New York of the Shadow, not necessarily the Shadow itself.
Yeah. Yep. So Sean had a question. He wanted to know, what was the first comic that brought you guys into the industry? You want to take this one, Lateef? Start with you.
The first comic.
Yeah.
The first comic. Oh God. The first comic.
Okay. I can solve this for you a little bit. I don't know the actual answer, but one of the things that Imani has done that's been really cool in the comic industry is the dude gave a TED talk about comics. And can you talk about your relationship with Brother Man?
Oh, Brother
and
Man.
With the milestone stuff, because that's super relevant right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like, so it's interesting. So like when I came into comics, it was in the 90s, right? So it was just when comic book shops were actually a thing, were actually becoming really popular. So like technically my first comics would probably be something like it might actually be something like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle or something like that, radioactive hamsters or whatever. But then, of course, in X-Men, everybody was picking up X-Men and all that kind of stuff. So, but the comics that had some of the biggest impact were that milestone era, because what was so interesting is that, myself and my friends, we weren't just reading comics. We were trying to come up with our own comic book characters. We were drawing comics and, creating characters and stuff like that. And we never seen any of our, characters like this in mainstream comics until Milestone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and to be honest, I'm not sure if we weren't really huge fans of Static. I think we liked Hardware more, and we liked Blood Syndicate a lot, because it was basically like, it was kind of like the X-Men type, vibe to it, but it was more urban. So that's what I got at the regular comic book shop, right? Is those books. My father, he would take me to there was only one black-owned bookstore in Toledo at the time. I don't think there is one now. And that's where you could find Brother Man, because Brother Man you couldn't find him in the regular comic book shop. You will find him Dawood, like he targeted ethnic festivals and stuff like that. You might see him out in events and stuff like that. Or you'll find him in black bookstores. And that's where my father found those books. So that era, that time in the 90s, those two books had the biggest impact on me. And yeah, that was pretty much it. Oh, and Tribe, of course. With Larry Stroman. Yeah. That's my bucket list. My bucket list of interviews is Larry Stroman, and with Todd Johnson, both of them, and Dawood Anyabwile, the illustrator on Brother Man. That's my bucket list of folks I want to talk to.
Yeah, I remember picking up Tribe when it came out. I'd fallen in love with Larry's art on Alien Legion. Was a huge Alien Legion fan.
Right. Alien Legion.
When that came out, I'm like, yep, give me. Yeah. Now, see, you guys are killing me, though, that if your early comics are like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I know Kyle's a huge TMNT fan. Even Sean's saying his first book was the 2015 Batman TMNT #1. My first book was Captain America 189 in 1975, which I recently found out Nick Barucci owns the cover of. So I'm going to have to figure out some way to sneak into his house and steal it. But he's invited me over a few times, so I'll have to figure out how to make that work. But
so for me, there's two answers, right? There's the comics that got me into comics, and then there's the first comic I bought with my own money.
Okay. And
they're very different things.
So Faust got you. Faust was the first one you bought with your own money.
No. No. The first one. So the first artist whose art I could recognize from across the room was John Romita Jr. So the first book I bought with my own money was X-Men 130, the Dazzler cover. Because I'm like, that's John Romita art. I want it.
Right.
Give it to But the books that got me into comics,
I remember him from Cable too. That's when he did Cable a lot. Yeah.
But the books that got me into comics were Spider-Man. My dad got me Spider-Man. My grandpa got me Spider-Man. We've collected Spider-Man my whole life. It's been a thing. But the big thing is that my parents were cool if I was reading. My mom runs a literacy program, so reading was the most important thing. And so they were good with me reading Mad Magazine so long as I was reading something. And then we would go to the comic store. We'd go to the comic shop also had gaming and sports cards. So we'd go to the comic store to pick up sports cards or whatever. And I'd convince my dad, hey, can I have this comic? And it was stuff like Preacher. And I'm like,
what?
Yeah, 12, 13 maybe, like reading Preacher.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was real bad, but it was, I was good to read, so it let me, like, as long as I was reading, they didn't pay that much attention. And the answer to that was it let me read stuff that I wouldn't or be exposed to things I wouldn't have otherwise been exposed to. Storytelling and concepts and thought ideas that were existing at that time in the late 90s, early 2000s when I was young, because Dan and JD are old and Imani's older than I am, but I'm still there.
Am I?
Yeah, you're a couple years older than me at least.
I look better though.
Yeah. Oh God, yes.
We're just gonna have to smother him with a pillow someday, aren't we?
Sure. It's true. I look rather old for my age, and everybody else looks rather young. So
JD says that his John Romita Jr. is his single favorite comic artist. And thank you, Jen. I brought the hat out specifically for the 1000th anniversary. So,
yeah, it's his magic hat. So JD wants to know when we want to go to commercial.
All right, let's go to commercial.
Yeah,
maybe when we get back,
run the commercial for the 6-month anniversary, JD.
There you go.
I can't stop producing. My brain won't let me.
To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We are doing our 1000th episode. I'm still having a hard time with how to say that 1000th episode of the experience here. Well, I am joined by
clarify a thing real quick.
But yeah,
it's our 1000th broadcast.
I'm sorry.
I called it the 1000th show, but then I got to thinking about it. When we first started, we were doing sometimes 4 and 5 shows as one broadcast. So we're well over 1,000 shows. We're well over 1,000 hours, but this is our 1000th broadcast.
So you just wanted a reason to party today?
No, like this is our. So the whole reason this came about, ironically, is that I sat down to do some maintenance on the YouTube page, and I noticed that we were at like 985 broadcasts.
Aha.
And I'm like, hey, we're gonna cross the line of 1,000 this week, and this is the hour that we're gonna do it. And so I'm like, we got to do something, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. All right. So our 1000th broadcast, and we are joined by Kyle Northrup, our producer extraordinaire and co-host of In Stores This Week. and Imani Lateef, host of Black Comic University. Sean says, Dan will get this, but my favorite experience moment was hosting. Sean got a shout out last night. It was his name that I called out for a Dan Wickline show.
Nice.
I was told he was a regular viewer by his sister, and so I made him the host of the show last night. So,
you want to take another stab at Black Comics Universe there, Dan?
Did I say Black Comic University again?
It's fine. It makes me sound. It makes me sound smarter than I am.
Because I feel that whenever Lateef is on, he is teaching stuff. He's taking us to school. So
whenever Imani shows up,
it's Black Comic University, but it's Black Comic Universe. So, but
that was the hardest part about doing the show and doing the event was the muscle memory to spell comics is with a CS, and he uses an X. And getting
I'm just I'm making all kind of problems with me.
Well, and then getting the spell check on my phone to do it was even harder.
So,
that's right.
All right. Now we were supposed to have a third guest, and I haven't seen.
She is on her way.
Okay.
Her store didn't close until 6, and that's assuming all the customers were gone. So
that's why you keep a cattle prod behind the counter.
Well,
it might be why I also don't own a retail store.
There you go. Cattle prod is not a way to sell comics there, Dan.
Yeah. All right, Imani, who's your get? Who's the guy, the great interview you still want? Who's the guy you're going after?
It's interesting because we have a booker now, and I'm like, I have like a short list of people that I want to talk to. I think me and Kyle talked about the creative team behind Static, the new Static.
Vita Ayala.
I would love to talk to them. Let's see. The artist
when you mentioned Larry Stroman earlier, I sent him a text going, "Hey, add Larry Stroman to the list." I knew I forgot somebody.
Yeah. Larry, I think you thought Danny Quicken that was funny. I think he would be actually hilarious, man. Because as far as on social media, he's right off the chain. But yeah, Alternate Comics. I don't think so.
Other than I sold them when I had a store, no.
Right. So yeah, so like that creative team, or anybody from that era, from the Milestone era, that would be
Dennis Cowan, Reggie Hudnall.
Yeah.
The closest thing would probably be John Illich, Joseph Illich. I mean,
Joe Illich. He did.
I did interview. I interviewed Ron. Now his interview was kind of cool because I liked his interview because he's like, I don't know how to put it, but he's such a.
He put it right on Front Street, like.
Yeah, it's like it's not about. It's so funny because when you ask him about, okay, what inspires you, or what how do you defeat writer's block and all this kind of stuff, and he would like, these bills, man, I gotta pay these bills, I gotta do it. So he's like, it's like he's so on the grind and so focused on the art form. It doesn't feel like there's any anything can deter him from writing the story. It's like it was a very nuts and bolt interview with him. That was actually one of my favorite interviews too. What's up there?
Cool. Sean, you can find that on our YouTube channel, which you're currently on. So just scroll back a bit. Do you guys remember how long ago that was you interviewed?
If you search,
that was the very first. That was during the BCU event, so it would have been like one of the first few hours that we were ever on. So it would have been one of those interviews.
Maybe we can get a replay in of it next week.
Yeah, we probably should replay it like sometime soon.
Yeah, all right.
But that wasn't a good interview.
A couple of times, but we can
because he mentioned he's been promoting his new book. I've noticed lately, and he mentioned it in that interview.
Yeah.
How about you, Kyle? Who's the get you still want to bring in, and is it somebody from from Comics for Wrestling.
Oh Lord. Is Stan Lee an answer? Jack Kirby.
We could do a seance.
Right.
Seance.
I'll be honest. My list is.
Hey, JD just posted a link to that Rodney interview. So good on you, JD.
JD Smith. Jericho would be great. I'd rather have Punk. If we're going to go professional wrestling, I'd rather talk to or AJ Mendez, who just had a comic come out, who's still working in comics like CM Punk. Mick Foley from the professional wrestling world. I know he's a comic book fan. So many of my guests that I'd like to get are guests I don't know yet. I just had a great interview that ran before this, and it'll run again tomorrow with Josh Trujillo, who wrote issue 1 of United States of Captain America. He got to create a new Captain America. That was a super fun. He created the first out gay, unhoused Captain America. Like, are you kidding me? That's a great conversation. That's something that's fun to talk about.
Yeah.
About representation, about, okay, what's it like to create a Captain America? So that's been super, that kind of stuff is super fun for me. In the comic book world, that's a lot of it. I just had a request to interview George Perez turned down. So that's not a thing. I like talking to legends, but I also love talking to people whose names are maybe not so well known right now.
Me too.
Celebrity-wise, the big one that I always put on my list is Weird Al. But getting Weird Al to come on a thing is not easy. And we're working on a couple from that list to be on for the 6-month anniversary, so I don't want to spoil anything.
Nice.
But one of them that we haven't gotten a response from, we asked in July to come on because he played Dum Dum Dugan and he was in Band of Brothers, is Neil McDonough. He's also Damien Dark in the Arrowverse. Oh, yeah. We finally have a good contact for that, so maybe that would be in the future. Somebody like that.
Nice. Yeah, the Arrowverse. Yeah, he was a big part of the Arrowverse in Legends of Tomorrow and whatnot. Great character too.
Somebody else, just to throw this out there, that will happen sooner rather than later, and I'll probably let Imani interview them. Are Arvell Jones and Keith Pollard. Some of that Detroit mob group. Bill Mesner Lobes, some of those kind of guys.
Nice. So,
that sounds like a 2-hour. If it's anything like the last time I saw him at the shop, we're gonna need. It's gonna be a 2-parter.
Just tell the affiliates you're gonna run long and.
Well, man. Arvell's got so many great stories, right? And he's one of those in the same vein as Neil Adams. You ask him a question, and an hour later, he's done telling his stories about that question. And I love Arvell, and I love Keith for that very reason. But yeah, Imani need 3-4 episodes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've got an interview I'm trying to lock in. I think would be similar with Jim Valentino. That I think would be, So I just need to get that set up. But I think my big the one I want to talk to is Jim Lee. Just because I'm a huge fan of his, but also he owes me $10 from a poker game, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't remember that. So
really,
yeah.
JD Smith, we interviewed Mark Bagley for 15 minutes way back at the EXP Expo. He was working on what wound up being one of the hottest covers of the year, and I don't remember what book it was, and forgot about his interview. And so he came on for 15 minutes, and we've been trying to get him back since then, but he's so damn busy. He's doing so much right now, so many covers that he's just unavailable. I just heard from Nancy. Her internet is down. Expected fix 11 p.m. So Nancy will not be making it, unfortunately, but we will queue Nancy up for a Q&A with Dan another time.
There we go. Yep, I haven't seen Nancy since she moved, so that would be nice to catch up with her. So, all right, so we got about 15 minutes left, and I appreciate all the questions coming in from our chat group. JD asked if you had done anything with Imani, anything with Melissa White, aka Velvet Sister. I'm not familiar with Velvet Sister.
I'm not familiar, but I'm taking a look here, but no, I haven't, not yet. But I would love to. I think that's one of the things I'm definitely trying to speak with more women in the industry. And what I've noticed is that it's a lot independently. It's I don't know. It's just weird. Like I just noticed how male dominated my network is as far as indie creators. But when I notice like the women that I do follow, it seems like they're on a different trajectory. So it's like it almost feels like two different communities. So it's like I'm trying to make my way into adding a lot more, women into my sphere here. But that's definitely on my list in general, speaking to more women.
And that's something that's an interesting problem that we've had. And not necessarily a problem, but a conundrum. Is that if you're not in the, I'm going to steal a phrase from Hamilton. If you're not in the room where it happens, it's hard to enter those rooms sometimes. So, Imani is part of the Black indie community. So when we wanted to do, BCU, Imani's the guy, right?
Yeah.
He's in the room where it happens. And then, with Pride, we partnered with Prism Comics, and we're working on that partnership to continue that and get a show with them off the ground. They're in the conversation. They're having those conversations, and Amy Chu and Ming Chen for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month events. They're part of that community. And so the big thing I would say and this is to everybody out there who might be watching, is if you're part of a community that maybe is underrepresented or that you don't feel like is represented as well as it should be, or that people don't know about, there are real niche pockets of this fandom and of the pop culture community that people don't know about. Like I didn't know the difference between diesel punk and steampunk, but they're two different communities. Hit us up, send us a message on Facebook or through the website and just say, hey, I'd love to talk. I'd love to see you talk about this. Here are some people who maybe, could help you, or maybe you could talk to. Right. And it's always interesting to get to hear from differing opinions in different parts of the world. So that's what I meant, JD. Fill out the contact form there and let us know what's up. So like I said, it's an interesting thing, getting more women on the air is something I think we're all striving to do.
I just from my own personal experience in a different field, I also do photography. I work with a lot of models. I don't as much anymore, but I found that once you bring someone in, you work with them, and you create a safe space for them to create art, then they're more willing to tell other women that this is a space where you can go and be yourself and do that. And it's, because there is a lot of negativity out there. So I think it'll be like a snowball effect. Once you get a couple women on, a couple guests, and they see that it's, that we're really here to promote not only the comic industry, but the creators and the retailers, and just to make, get the word out about everything in the industry, I think then it'll start happening faster and faster.
Oh, sure. I mean, like I said, my thing is there are parts of the industry that I'm not a part of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I am in a very specific part of the industry. You know, and as such, am not always invited to those conversations, even though I'm an ally and a supporter.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But I always appreciate it when somebody like Imani or somebody like Ted at Prism or somebody like Amy Chu goes, hey, you know, there's this whole thing that you're missing out on.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my goals here on the experience is to be like, all right, well, let's make sure nobody else does. And let's give you a platform and let's work on it to kind of make sure that everybody else gets to know what's happening.
Makes sense. All right, let's swing this around to back to the last 1,000 broadcasts. Amani,
Yes.
what has been the biggest surprise since you started doing your show?
The biggest surprise.
How often his boss wants him to work late?
Yeah, like now that I have something to do, of course, right? Biggest surprise. Have I been surprised? I don't know. It's kind of nerdy, and it's kind of like, because on top of being indie, I'm definitely sort of like an industry wonk kind of guy. I think sometimes in some of my conversations I get too deep in the weeds when it comes to comic book industry and retail and the business and all this kind of stuff. And oddly enough, my biggest surprise was talking numbers with Marcus as far as being a part of the direct market. From an independent, most of the indies that I network with, that I work with, they're all pretty much distributing their books through Kickstarter. And I was just always kind of animately against the direct market as far as, distributing and selling your book, because I just felt like the direct market wasn't really looking for, our work, or really, trying to push it. I just didn't think that was the way to go. But talking to him, I'm actually surprised that how willing I am to like sort of rethink that whole idea, not just in comics, but just creatively overall. Like, I think as far as independent creators go, sometimes I think we can go, there's another extreme. Like we can be so independent that we're not looking at, the writing on the wall and say, okay, no, I think it's time to scale up, work with a distributor, work with a publisher. Maybe instead of kickstarting this book, I should pitch this book to a publisher. Maybe I should, find the means to, push this book out or publish this book outside of Kickstarter. So I think actually that might be the biggest surprise. It's not necessarily a, mind-blowing surprise, but it's definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things personally.
Okay. How about you, Kyle?
Well, I can speak to two. One is it's a small world after all, which is this industry, man, is tiny. For as much as we output as an industry as a whole and pop culture as a whole, it's Dan knows so-and-so that knows so-and-so that I know. Or, one degree of everything in this industry is one degree of Kevin Bacon. It's...
Yeah, like you knew my cousin before we ever met each other.
Right. I knew Imani's cousin before I knew Imani.
You knew Victor Dandridge before I ever met Kyle.
Right. And now it's...
And we live in the same town.
Right. It's I comment on a friend of mine's post and then Ed Brisson comments on it.
Right.
Like, wait, what? Like, I'm 1 degree of Ed Brisson, like, or I'm 1 degree, like, I'm 1 degree of Neil Gaiman, which is super weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, I'm friends with Glenn Fabry, who's friends with Neil Gaiman.
Right.
Like, what is my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's been one. And the other one has been guys like J.D. Smith and Sean Butler and these people who show up for every show every time. You know, it's my experience, and it bears itself out a lot of the time. Right, true. Dan and I have both worked with Scott.
Scott Benefield, yeah.
Yeah, Scott Benefield. There you
go. My first freelance work was with Scott over at Metal Hurlant, or on Metal Hurlant for Humanoids.
My favorite connection like that, though, is Dan has Jim Beard on his shows, who's here in Toledo with Imani and I, who signed at my store, who like used to be on the radio when I was a producer in radio with the host of that radio. Like, are you kidding me right now? Like how that works out. But the other one is, the guys who show up for every show every time. Most of the time people follow the people they like. And there's some people that I've gotten to, you know, really appreciate in the comments that just show up and are here and are interested in what we have to say and the shows we put on. And that has been a huge surprise and really like a great moment for me.
All right. Sean says, getting to interact with all the creators that the experience has had on, as well as the show host, has been the best part of it for me as a fan. Well, thank you, Sean. That is very nice of you to say. All right. I think we're going to wrap it up here. We're about to pass this over to, I believe, Jen.
Yes.
What's Jen's show titled? I'm not normally at this hour.
It's What's in the Box?
What's in the box? And then I will be back.
I saw a book. She teased a book that I might have to tune in for that one.
All right. I'll be back at 6:00 tonight or 9:00 Eastern time. We're talking to colorist and writer extraordinaire Brian Haberlin. But before we go, guys, real quick, one name, one industry person that you think really, really deserves more attention. Just off the top of your head, one name. Imani.
Top of my head, Dawood Anyawele.
Okay.
That's a Kyle. I'm going to go ahead and say Victor LaValle.
All right.
I got another one. Michael Golden from Nam.
Yes.
Okay, Michael Golden's a buddy of mine.
I love Michael Golden. Michael Golden.
I'm going to throw Brandon Easton out there. Brandon's a great guy doing great work. Check out Mr. Miracle.
Sean Butler, don't say that. His head will get too big to fit on screen.
He's on my bucket list. That's another person on my list too. I got to talk to this booker. I need to talk to the booker that we got now.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Stick around for Jen and What's in the Box. And I'll see you guys in a couple hours. Have a good night.
Thanks, Dan.
Later.